And we are live. So last week, sweetheart, what were we talking about? We were talking about the money, right?
I thought it was Monty.
Money.
Monty.
There are three ways to make money, right? Three ways to get wealthy. You got to own things. Three things, right?
Not like shirts and shoes and pants and cars
And
not that kind of
Teslas and stuff, right?
Yeah,
No,
not
no,
that
no.
kind
We're
of
not talking
stuff.
about that. We're talking about stock. You got to own stock or real estate or a business.
Or business. Speaking of business, we are bringing on this lady who is incredible. She opened her own business in Mexico.
That's right. And did it even though there was some fear involved. Like this move for us from the States to Portugal, I'm going to tell y'all. I'm just going to tell you. We were doing it. I was afraid as all get out, but we did the doggone thing anyway, right?
Yeah, we did.
And that's sometimes you just got to do that.
Sometimes you just got to take that step out there.
So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about starting a business. We're going to talk about walking in fear with grace. But first, let's introduce ourselves. Hey, y'all. My name's Halisi.
And I'm Rick. Welcome to our Black Utopia.
On our channel, we talk about money, travel, and retiring abroad as we build generational wealth. So who, sweetheart, is our special guest today?
Today, our special guest is Michelle Wedderburn. Michelle is the founder of
He's looking at
Expat Life Mexico. She's also the owner, I mean, come on, y'all. Y'all got to give it to her, of Casa Boutique Guesthouse in
San Miguel de Allende, Mexico.
I was going to say it.
Yeah, but my accent's not great, but you know.
I'm do it anyway. I'm gonna do my pop. I gotta do my pop.
But first, if you're new to our channel, let me tell you, about 6 years ago, Rick and I were getting close to retirement age, and we did not have anything saved. Well, we had a little bit saved, but we had a lot of debt. All of our stuff just looked crazy.
Great.
But 3 years ago, we got our financial act together, and we went from negative $22,000 to over $800,000 in net worth. And you can do the same thing. If we can do it, just about anybody can do it, right?
Oh yeah.
That's right. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, please subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when we go live, and hit the like button.
Share the video.
Yes, please share. So we are going to bring on our special guest, Michelle Wedderburn. Hey, girl, how you doing?
Michelle.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So we introduced you, but why don't you introduce yourself?
Will do. Well, first of all, thank you both so much for reaching out to me quite a few months ago. And now it's finally happening. I truly appreciate it. I think we had a couple missed messages, and we're here. We're here today.
Here.
So yes, so I'm so blessed. And even the conversation we had the last time, we were like, we should have hit the record button. I really love your energy. I love what you're putting out to people. So thanks again for bringing me on. I'm Michelle Wedderburn, the founder of Expat Life Mexico, formerly Afro Expats, and also the owner of Casa Boutique Guesthouse. I live in San Miguel de Allende, which is located in central Mexico. I've been here since 2018. And talk about just making that leap of faith in so many ways. I am just really grateful because honestly, we don't always know or see the path in front of us, but it's been really an amazing journey. And I'm just really blessed to be in this space and also be here to speak with you all. So things have been good. I love living here in central Mexico. I've traveled a lot, and this just felt like the right spot for us to, keep the chapters of life going. So here I am.
Well, let's start at the top because, one of the things that I think we've seen is, I read an article in Time Magazine that said there's a brain drain going on in the United States because there are so many folks leaving. They have been processing more passports than ever before. So why did you leave the United States?
Ooh, I would say for the most part, the biggest push for me to leave was from when I was pregnant. I did not want to raise my child in the United States, even before I knew what, was I having a boy or a girl. I just had this kind of maybe dream of the kind of life that I wanted my child to experience that was kind of more of what I fantasized as a kid, but did not have those opportunities. I really like the idea of, my kid being multicultural and speaking other languages, etc. But once I had my son, I was just so knee deep in so many things, including having my own business in Florida. Just, life throws so much at you. You're just so focused and busy on so many different things. But when I fast forwarded just a few years and I started realizing so much violence in the schools, I was just a ball of anxiety. And I remember thinking, like, this is not how I grew up in the 70s. And I really would like for my kid to have a similar resemblance of what I experienced growing up, being able to play outside and, not having all these crazy external fears of, whatever's going on in the US. And I think my biggest thing was the gun violence. I was just really so petrified about bringing him to school. And I started taking mental notes and checks of how I felt when I was bringing him to daycare and to kindergarten was like the only grade that we did in the US. And I thought, this is ridiculous. Maybe I'm a little over the top, but I just remember feeling like we've got to go. That was my biggest drive, is to raise him in another place. Yeah.
I think had I had Jabari a little later, I probably would have been at the same place. Columbine happened when he was in school, and we were in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first one that I heard of that was like, okay, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Rick was there, and he was actually filming the day after for the news agencies and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I mean, that moment kind of changed my perspective on the United States. But what, it would take another 20 years. I just didn't think that Black people could move abroad
Exactly.
unless you worked for a company that moved you.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that we were just speaking about, why we're doing what we're doing and why so many other people are doing this. We want representation that this is possible for you too.
Yeah.
Like, see yourself in that position. It's not rocket science. Don't get me wrong. Yes, you need to figure out the financials, but one thing I think I never really thought about was living in a place where it's less expensive means you need less, right? You need less things, you need less income, and you can actually get more quality of life. And I think that was just something that was so hard for me to see back
Yeah.
in probably the early 2000s. I had previous opportunities to live in Mexico, and I was just like, oh, I'm not going to make that much, and I'm just going to be in a secluded place. And boy, was I just missing the mark. I just missed the mark. I was just like, I could have been here
Right?
Yeah.
a long 20 something years ago.
Had
Yeah.
no idea. No idea
Mhm.
Yeah. That was
whatsoever.
something rich
Yes.
people did.
Yeah, only rich folk did that.
Rich white people. To be
Exactly.
honest.
Exactly.
Be honest.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's see who's joining us. We've got quite a few people. So I told you I scheduled this thing. I don't know. I think I scheduled it when we were in Denver, or maybe even in Mexico.
We were in Mexico.
Yeah. So, the time got off, and we had people who were like, gosh, they're in here 2 hours early. That's interesting. So we fixed it, and it looks like some folks are back. So hello, Auntie Trey. She was the first one from the ATL. How you
Trey.
doing?
Hi.
Cassandra, good to see
Oh,
you
that's
again.
my middle name. Hi, Cassandra.
Oh, you do have a lot of letters in your name, don't you?
Yes.
And who's here for take two? So I would thank you, AMM, for coming back, and Action VJ for coming back. Hey, Cassandra. Krishan, I'm sorry, not Cassandra. Krishan, we saw you earlier today in
and
the
you
Zoom.
Called her Krishan then
and
too.
I did. Girl, I know your name. But Vanessa, good to see you. Greta, glad you made it back. Greta. Yay. So excited. Michelle was a guest on the podcast. Looking forward to hearing her update.
Hi,
yes.
Krishan.
Hey, Phyllis. Mom, one of my moms is there. Yay. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. And
I love
Dietrich
it.
saying hello to everyone. Zolina, wait, this looks like a new name. Zolini El Sol. I hope I said that right.
Sholani.
Jolani, perhaps?
Sholani.
You think so? Okay,
I
let us
don't
know.
know.
Like
I don't
spell it
know.
phonetically because
I like Jelani. It sounds exotic.
it does sound exotic.
It
Yeah,
It
does.
does.
That's a
let's check
pretty
this out.
name.
Yes,
Oh,
hello,
who's
Professor. How
Slick
are you?
Rick? Who's calling you Slick Rick? I'm about to start rapping.
Right?
What y'all know about Slick Rick?
She's
Right?
definitely in
Because I
our
got my
age
hat
group.
on.
So we
Yes.
know Slick Rick. Hey Winnie, good to see you there. And Vicky. And mind your business. Speaking of money, IRS raised contribution limits to 401k and IRA. Oh, good to know. We might have to do a little video on that. Definitely. And Barbara's in the house. And Margaret, hello, friends. Hello, everybody.
Margaret.
We love you. Creativity reigns. And Danita Price, as you guys know, any questions, put a Q in front of it. Yes,
Yes.
walking in blind faith,
Hi, the Yard
girlfriend.
Bros. The Yard Bros. I have to say hi to them.
Are
Yes.
they in there? I haven't gotten to them yet. Hey, hey,
Yes.
hey. They are.
Hey, what's up?
Hi.
What's up?
Possible and necessary, in my humble opinion. Good to see you. Good to see
Love
you.
it.
I thought only Black folks in the military traveled the world, right? And
Mhm.
interestingly enough, a lot of the folks that we've met here in Portugal either were in the military or had family in the military.
Mhm.
So I think that that is interesting. Maybe, because they've already been out here, this was nothing new.
But I think a lot of blacks that were in the military either came back and never went back again, or they
Mhm.
stayed.
Right.
That could be too.
Yeah.
That could be
Right.
too. So we've got Pam and we've got another new name. Welcome, welcome, welcome from Ethiopia. Wow. So
Wow. Love it.
Sosina? Sosina? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Um,
Forgive her if she's not.
Yes,
She's
Tracy.
trying.
Killer Queen, Erica. Hello, Nubia Net is in the house.
Hi, Margaret.
BJM.
Hi,
Yes,
Margaret. She says,
Alicia.
oh, thank
Um,
you.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to your question, BJ and Janae, um, Karen Louise. Y'all are in the house.
Yes.
Ballerina, Loretta. Hello, y'all. We just love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's pronounced Zolani.
Oh, that's pretty.
Oh, that is beautiful. Zolani El Sol. I love it. I love it, love it,
Love
love
it.
it. So let's talk about something that you were saying before, this journey. And you've traveled a lot. So tell us about all of the places that you've traveled, and then why Mexico, and then why San Miguel de Allende.
Well, I won't remember all the places because I've been to over 33 countries. So, yeah, I can say I'll tell you some of my favorite places. Definitely Mexico, and unexpectedly so, because we were invited. This was a long time ago, 2005, to visit Mexico, and San Miguel was my first stop, which is really kind of ironic that I ended up back in San Miguel, however many years later. But some friends of ours were telling us about this little town, blah, blah, blah. I was much younger. I came and I was just kind of like, okay. About San Miguel, it was very sleepy, slow, dirt roads. Literally, you could see horses and things like this. But I could tell it was up and coming. I remember I stayed in this really cool, at the time, I don't even know if we had like the term that was norm to say boutique hotel, but there was this like boutique hotel that we stayed in, and it was just cute. And I remember thinking like, this is really nice. But it was just very slow at that point. But some of my favorite places I can say were Thailand. I really love Thailand. I went to Cambodia, enjoyed Cambodia, but I loved Thailand. I just liked the way the people were and how gracious they were in general. And I find that a lot of those cultural traits exist in Mexico. So that kind of, it's closer to home being US and Canada. So for me, I don't need to go that far to experience this. And, there are parts of Europe that I really like, but I can say that I enjoyed a lot of my time in South America as well. Ecuador, which I know the Yarbroughs have been featuring a lot on
Yes.
Yeah.
Ecuador. And yeah, so it's such like a nostalgic feeling for me right now to see so many of us out there talking about these places that I visited, like back in the early 90s, mid 90s, fast
Wow.
forwarding when I never saw a face that looked like mine online or, on YouTube. I didn't really watch YouTube. I don't even know when YouTube really became popular. But now I'm so proud, to be kind of like a part of that where it's like, okay, yes, we've been out here, we've been traveling, we've been doing these things, but we have now platforms to show that, hey,
Right.
you can do
Right.
it too, because
Right.
we haven't really seen us in these capacities for years. I grew up in the 70s, and just looking in National Geographic, when they featured a brown and black face, it was usually in a negative way, someone
Right.
running around in a tribe in Africa, which was cool and interesting as well. But it always felt so remote to anything that resembled what we did on the norm. So I'm just grateful that I'm a part of that process. So those are some of my favorite places, and definitely Mexico. It's just an interesting country for me. I'm just happy to be here. But yeah, been to a lot of places, but these are kind of my favorites.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
y'all know that we have permanent residency in Mexico, so we love it too.
Yes.
And of course, its proximity to the United States.
Yes.
So it made
Yeah.
me think because you brought up Canada, and I totally forgot. So your family is from the islands,
Hmm.
uh, and then
Jamaica.
Canada.
Yes.
And so is your son like tricultural?
Actually, yes. Yes, he is. So I was born in Canada. His dad was born in St. Martin, and he was born in Miami. So he clearly has a US passport. He has Canadian citizenship, and he now has a Dutch passport. So there you have
Wow.
it. Yeah.
It must be nice.
Yes. Yeah. I'm looking
It,
forward to the future. I'm like, no excuses for you. You have all these opportunities. You better take advantage of them. So, yeah.
the world is changing. The
Hmm.
world is changing. And I think, if the pandemic didn't teach us anything, it's that we do not have to be tethered to
Hmm.
one location. We don't
Mm-mm.
have to be tethered just to our zip code. We know folks who've never left their zip code. I mean, besides Mexico, because I didn't count Mexico as foreign because I grew up in San Diego.
Right.
So Mexico was next door. It was just right
Right.
there. Um, and then in those days, you didn't need a passport to get to Mexico either, nor Canada,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um, so we didn't leave the continent. Well, I didn't leave the continent until 2008. That was my
Wow.
first time.
Going to
Wow.
Africa.
And
Okay.
we went to South Africa. So we left on a 26-hour flight
Right.
to South Africa. And we stayed for a month, and I got to teach kids entrepreneurship there. And
Love
that was
it.
it. That just changed my whole perspective.
It
And we
does.
started looking at properties in South Africa.
Yeah, because
Oh,
you
wow.
start looking
Didn't
at
see that.
there's just other places I can go besides being stuck in the United States.
Right. Right.
Especially when you see people that look like you.
Yeah, it was nice to be the default, right?
Yeah.
Black is the
Right.
default,
Yeah, I
right?
felt that way in the islands. I'd go to Jamaica and I was just like, oh, this is nice, and understanding like this is where my parents are from. It was just always a nice feeling to just kind of be around the majority of us, even though, yeah, I love my
Yeah.
coconuts, but we're a little crazy. Okay. A little eccentric. But it was always really a lot of fun. I think
Yeah.
one of my first trips to Jamaica when I was, more of a grown up, I remember just feeling like, gosh, this is where my parents are from. And I had this like, kind of a deja vu moment where I thought, had I grown up here, I would definitely know more. I would sound more like them and, understand just the history behind it. And I think that alone just made me very proud to be from a country that really celebrates their Blackness, to be honest. Yeah.
Yes, especially after growing up in Canada or the States, especially the
Mhm.
States.
Connecticut.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
seriously, seriously. Um, And so tell us, for those who don't know, for those who are just meeting Michelle for the first time, Expat Life Mexico, what do you talk about on your channel? And how does this relate to you getting to and being in Mexico?
Well, I talk a lot to other expats of color in Mexico mostly. And as I said earlier before we started recording, and I've shared this often on my channel and with people, I basically started more from the perspective of trying to answer questions through video, right? Through here's my life in Mexico through video. And I think a lot of YouTubers, we start with one thing and then it sort of morphs into whatever it is that we are. And even in that, we start to define more things, what people want to see, the questions that people are asking. But one of the things that I kept getting were referrals from people that didn't want to necessarily be at a beach town. Where else can we be in Mexico? And I started realizing that a lot of people don't realize how big the country is. And also just the
Yeah.
negativity that I think comes with saying I am moving to Mexico or I am going to live in Mexico, and the lack of knowing how much diversity exists in Mexico. So for me, starting as Afro expats was to just kind of show life through my lens, our lens, and
Right.
that we loved it, and it was kind of pre the pandemic, where people were getting on, and after the whole, incident in the United States, where it was just like crazy, suddenly all of these groups were popping up and people were like, hey, Michelle's over and blah, blah, blah. Why don't you contact her? And I would spend time Zooming with people, talking to them on the phone,
Mhm.
answering messages on Facebook. And then from there, I realized there was a need for more clarity about life here, and that there wasn't really anything for you to be super afraid of trying to look into these options for yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that I am a normal person who decided to make a plan and move abroad. And that's sort of how it started. Was and I took videography in college. So for me, going back to learning how to edit and taking video of my vacations, I thought, okay, this is cool. Look at Mexico. It's so beautiful because I'm visual. But then I started realizing people just wanted to get information about
Mhm.
Mexico. And that's when I started moving into interviewing people in Mexico, Black expats in Mexico. And where are they? What's their story? What was their journey? And I also learned a lot about myself. Typically, even though I'm out here, I'm very introverted in my world, and my kind of, yeah, I'm yeah, what I'm saying. Like, I don't mind doing this. I love talking one-on-one, but I'm not like, hey, well, guess what I'm up to. I'm just sort of like, okay, this
Right.
is my little box right here and I'm going to stay in it. But I started talking to so many interesting people, and I was so moved by everyone's different journey, and I started realizing that everyone who wants to come here is also going to experience that. And there's nothing for you to be afraid of. You know what I'm saying? So look at this person and look at that guy and look at this probably, more highly unlikely person in somewhere in
Right.
Texas that was a farmer, and this is an actual example. And when I spoke to him, I just remember thinking like, man, he's so interesting. And look at him down here in Mexico living his best life. And I just thought it was important to share all of these examples of us moving, migrating, immigrating to Mexico, or yeah, I only focused on Mexico, but people who were interested in coming here found that, that was helpful to them to see it. So I was very, very grateful that my channel sort of turned into being that. And then I started to talk about San Miguel and just kind of really focus on the space that I live in. And a lot of this advice came from various friends of mine, and also talking to Stephanie Perry and Rashida and Anne Marie, just kind of like, hey, Michelle, you live in San Miguel, you know a lot about San Miguel, be San Miguel. And I was like, yeah, you're right, so that sort of, it started to morph into that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And that's how I heard about you. It's San Miguel, Michelle. Oh, it rhymes.
Yeah.
So how? We are gonna get to Casa. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay. I'd like to know because one of the things that you mentioned about moving abroad and needing less money, perhaps, especially if you're moving to a place that is less expensive than the United States, if you're coming from the United States or Canada.
Mhm.
But so I'd love to hear about, and I know folks in the chat want to know about the costs of the move and all of that, and how did you prepare financially? But equally as important, how has your mental, spiritual, and physical health changed since you've been in Mexico?
Oh, okay. So that's really a loaded, loaded questions. I'll give you the short versions of each. So, as far as like moving, you already got my why. Pretty much, there was a lot more to it, but in this moment, those were like my biggest factors. I think one of the best examples I can give you was my first day or two sitting in the jardín, which is in front of the parroquia, which is our symbolic church here in San Miguel. If you look up any San Miguel photos, you'll see this
Yeah,
very Gothic,
beautiful. Yes.
ginormous church, which is kind of, the icon for San Miguel. And I remember going into town with my son, pre even signing or getting the keys to our apartment. And he was just really running around in the carousel they had and the kids that were there, and no one spoke English, and he was just free. And I remember feeling such a sense of, relief that I wasn't sitting outside in somewhere in Florida worrying about violence or an outbreak or something crazy. I always had that kind of feeling, kind of moving around the US. And being in that moment, I just remember thinking, like, yes, this was the right decision for us. As far as, the financial aspect, I always say that, you kind of need to know what you can live off of, because I think we all can live anywhere. It's just a matter of defining your conveniences and your
Right.
inconveniences, right?
Mhm.
Like a lot of folks say, San Miguel is expensive. Yes, it's more expensive for sure. I agree 100% than living in other parts of Mexico. But there are places that you can choose to live, but it all depends on what does that look like for you? What is your quality of life? Is it working more to pay more? Or is it, what, I'm cool in this space because it's comfortable and it gives me what I need, and I now have a community that supports me? It just all depends. I think sometimes what I notice with a lot of my clients who, thank you, Jesus, for them because they're all amazing. Um, there's that transitional period of time when you
Yes.
first move or you're making the decision to move, where you aren't sure how to kind of morph into this new life. You know what I'm saying? And it takes a little bit of time to realize, you know what? This is not as priority, like having all these things and all this stuff and all this
Mhm.
space is not priority. And it's hard. Like, I recently moved, and I still have more space than I really need. And I'm just kind of like, now I'm here. I'm like, okay, mom, can we go through one of these weekends and start, clearing stuff out? I've only been here since April. And I'm just like, okay, we got to clear some more stuff. My point simply is that I think that it's possible for us to be almost anywhere,
Yeah.
but it's kind of a state of mind, how we, you know, kind of take it on. So I do think it's definitely doable if with a plan. You need a plan, financial
Mhm.
cost to get here. That again depends on you. Do you just pick up a suitcase or two and get on the plane and just say, okay, I'm going to look for my
This
place?
is it.
Or do you bring, $20,000 worth of stuff on the truck? That's kind of up to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to admit that when we first bought our house in Denver, I could not imagine going back to an apartment. Like, because,
Mhm.
we have arrived, right? We
Right.
now have the multi-level home with 4
Hmm.
bathrooms and the this and the that, and we've got to furnish all of that space.
Right.
Even though it was just us and one kid left at home,
Yeah.
we had to have all of that. And and then the basement and the big 70-inch TV and all of that nonsense that just seems so unimportant now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If having all of that means I have to put up with the stuff that I used to put up with in different jobs, folks telling me slave days aren't over, I want you balled and chained to your desk and nonsense like that.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you.
Exactly.
It,
Exactly.
but I didn't know that that was an option.
Right. And I
I didn't
think we're
even
so
know.
conditioned. We're just conditioned. I mean, I remember graduating. Now I'm dating myself, but I don't care. I graduated high school in 86 and just always having this thing that I have to be in a corporate job. I got to go to college, for 4 years. Nothing wrong with getting educated and or even higher, above getting a BA. But just always feeling like I got to climb the corporate ladder. And, I had worked in corporate for about 15 plus years. And I just walked away. I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. And so I have literally not worked in a corporate job since 2002. And
Wow.
from there, I've crafted so many things for myself but no one can knock me for trying because I'm like, I had this business, I had that business in Florida, and now I'm doing this. The point is the mindset. I remember being in a job where people would shrug their shoulders at it, but I made pretty good money and I had a lot of time for me. And I remember in that moment feeling like this is what quality of life feels like
Mm-hmm.
because I'm able to, I remember in '08, I was like, I'm going to Thailand for a month because it's my birthday. I'm going
I
to
love it.
Thailand. And I took off a whole month and I was gone. And I did that often. So the point simply is I got so tired of 2 weeks every year. And I was always that person trying to figure out like, how long can I can I get off? I never had to carry over to the next year vacation day. Never. I
Oh,
was always like,
oh,
I'm trying to be out. And then I thought about it and I was like, where did this concept come from? Because Europe, they give people more time. Other countries, they give you a lot more time.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it we're begging for 14, not even 2 weeks was 10 days, 10 days with
right.
pay. No, I was like, forget
Out of
this. Oh,
52, out of 2,080 hours a year. I
yeah,
mean, goodness. And we just asking for 80,
right.
80 out of 2,000. It's
Exactly. It's too
crazy.
much.
And then you
It's
feel
too
like you have to beg. Like you figured once you became an adult, that you wouldn't have to, you could eat your dessert first.
right.
Right. But no, you
Mm-mm.
still are at the whim of someone else.
Somebody else.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I know he was to the point where I don't think he slept a full night's sleep ever since when he was working,
Yeah,
ever.
it's too much.
Because waking up, did I check that email and this and this and that and this and
Mhm.
that, right? With the
Constantly
threat
stressed.
of being fired.
Right, exactly. Constant. Like yeah, it's too much. I know that feeling. I haven't done it for a long time, but I know that feeling. So I know a lot
I
of
do
people
too.
can relate to that. And again, I don't knock it because I understand that we all have needs. Um, but it's nice to be able to kind of put other things out there for people to consider and find their path if they can and do something else. I mean, it's just a lot. So it's a
It
lot.
is.
I don't miss
So
it.
neither do I. Neither do I. And it was more important for us, right, to have less
Yes.
and not
Yeah.
work
Mm-hmm.
than try to keep up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
Then every time we kind of liked something or wanted something, I just want it.
Yes.
All that
Yes.
stuff keeps you enslaved.
Right. And then
Mm-hmm.
we ended up just giving it away when we moved here
I
anyway, because we didn't
know.
ship a bunch of stuff. We shipped suitcases
Yeah.
because sheets and stuff like that. Um, I had just bought some 1,000 count sheets on sale. I wasn't
Mm,
giving them up.
right.
I was not giving them up. So before we transition over to the business, because I love, love, love that story. Let's get some questions in.
Yes.
Okay. So, and BJ, so, okay, I'm going to save your question again. I just scrolled back to you, but it's about Casa Elm. So I'm going to come back to that question. And if there are any other questions not regarding Casa Elm, we'll answer those first and then we will transition. I did see some cues. What are common myths people ask you about? Hmm.
Is it safe? I think that's probably the biggest. And I don't think that only applies to Mexico. I think that's anything outside of the United States.
Hmm.
Even if they were going to Canada, is it safe? And I think that um, it's a fair question because I do really believe that the US has given us a lot of false messaging about other places in the world. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, Mexico has a very violent history in general. But at the same time, I think that there are plenty of places in the world that um, can, you know, be the same type of example,
Mhm.
and then people still go there. It all depends on the marketing. It depends on a lot of factors and a lot of things. What I think is sad about the kind of misconception overall is that the Mexican people are just have been so gracious and so amazing. And I know that there are, you know, pockets of folks out there that are probably doing things that we see more of in the news in the US than the goodness and the kindness that we actually receive here in this country. So I would say that that's probably one of the biggest questions that we get. And I actually felt that way as well, even though I had traveled so many years in and out of Mexico, never had any issues. But that doesn't matter because I didn't actually live here at that time. And when I was doing my research in 2016 and 17 to move to Mexico because I was coming with the child, I was kind of like, okay, you know, let me do my, you know, let me really
Mhm.
research as much as I can. And I just kept coming up with, okay, this area is good. This is not really affecting me. I remember asking my friends that were Mexican questions like, where's it safe to go? And do I need to be worried about what kidnapping, that we hear that all the time? And I remember
Right.
one of them was just like, you're not their demographic. Why would they kidnap you? And I thought, yeah, like, what do I have to give? So I started to, yeah, you know, like, why me? So I started
Right.
to kind of ease off on my fears. And then when I got here, I realized that I was walking out of kind of this immune zombie mentality that we have in the US that somehow we're so safe, right?
Right.
When we're actually not. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just this irony that I remember thinking, how often did I watch the news and hear about shootings or robberies or murders or rapes or what you name it? And it would probably be right in my neighborhood. And I was like, oh, I don't know that person. So, you know, that was the feeling of this kind of, you know, like this shield over my eyes where I thought, okay, I this doesn't affect me, doesn't have anything to do with me. Okay, the same thing applies here, right?
Right.
Not saying you don't care, but my point simply is that I live here and I'm not involved in these, you know, ridiculous things that happen. So why do I think like somehow it's just going to translate to me? Anything can happen anywhere in the world. So it
Right.
doesn't mean that
Right.
I'm just, you know, in a bubble of safety. No, it just means that I keep living the same way. I look around. Where am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? Who's around me? Things like that. So I think you use the same wisdom no matter where you
You
travel to,
are.
no matter where
Yes.
you live, and you do your due, you know, in diligence and inspecting, like, okay, what is this in this neighborhood or area? Do I go to this city? You know, okay, don't go there because it's probably not a great idea. And then you get to understand the culture and the people, and you ask them questions, and then you start really understanding where you are. And that's sort
Right.
of why I started thinking like, okay, I don't see all this crazy stuff on the news and things happening here in the same capacity. Doesn't mean things don't happen, but it just means that, you know, I feel like they're not like right at my back door, if that makes sense.
One of the things that really struck me is when I meet Africans in Colorado, and they would tell me that they were afraid of African Americans when they first arrived
Mm-hmm.
because all they saw over there was boys in the hood type stuff
Mm-hmm.
regarding us.
Right.
Same propaganda
Mhm.
that we hear about Mexico, right?
Right.
If you only hear just this, you only hear the bad news. You don't
Mm-hmm.
see all of the good stuff. But how many serial killers have there been in the United States just since I've been alive? Especially in California, running
Countless.
around up and down the highways, Zodiacs and this and that and all these names, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, the United States is so safe. Really?
Yeah.
One of the things that I loved seeing when we were in Mexico were the three generation families
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, doing
hanging
everything
together,
together
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
whether it was breakfast or at the
at the beach,
beach,
hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
hanging out,
Yeah.
doing
Mm-hmm.
the boardwalk stuff, it, and seeing not just tolerance of grandma,
Mm-hmm.
but appreciation of grandma,
Yes.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
honoring grandma and grandpa and
Yeah.
helping her down the ramp and the this and the that. And it just brought me, it's like, yes,
Right.
this is quality life. This is what it's supposed to look like,
Right. Right.
right?
Absolutely. They're so about family here. And honestly, one of the things I think has been just so endearing is, I have people who work for me that treat me like family and they don't have to. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not just
See,
a financial money exchange.
right.
I'm paying you and whatever. Every week almost I get invited to their farm. Come and see my mom,
Oh,
and we're going to do this
yeah.
on Sunday. If you ever, even I remember on Mother's Day they're like, come, we're going to roast a pig and whatever, and I was
Ooh,
just like, oh,
yum.
yeah, it's just so like it's they're I don't know, I just think there's some of the most amazing people that I've
Yeah.
come into, you know, just encountering in general in all my travels. I mean, I experienced a lot of these same feelings when I was in Thailand, but I wasn't invited into people's homes because I was there
Mhm.
as a tourist.
Right.
But I remember thinking like the people are so kind and, in general, gracious, and just the way they kind of move through society. I really appreciated that. And I think that Mexico has shown me a lot of that as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
just gentle in general. Yeah.
So when we were in Florida, especially southern Florida, one thing that we saw were huge houses. Did you have a challenge downsizing, and did you move like a bunch of stuff to San Miguel de Allende, or were you a little leaner?
I was leaner until I wasn't. I was leaner until I just realized, oh wait, maybe I can't get this, can't get that. It's funny because I've been meaning to do a video on it for people moving here, specifically, and some of the clients that have moved here to discuss, their experiences. Okay, so in short, because this could be a while, this could take a minute. When I started kind of processing, do we just go into a furnished unit?
Mm,
Or do we go into unfurnished and move everything? So it was very bumpy, had no one to really discuss it with. But one of the things that I think was a concern for me, because it was kind of my idea and kind of moving the family kind of this way, was to have the house feel and look like home. So
yes.
in my mind, I was like, okay, we have these items, blah, blah, blah. We'll bring them down, etc. So downsized a lot, from a 3 bedroom down to pretty much a 1 bedroom. Then I ran to Costco's and I was like, oh, we need fans, we need heaters, we need da, 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 da. And I started like, accumulating more things. So to answer the question properly, for Mexico, I can tell you here's what's difficult, in my opinion, to find.
Okay.
Very basics: sheets,
Yes. Heard
good
about that.
sheets. Yeah, you can get some good ones at Costco's. Maybe you can get them on Amazon.com.mx. There is an Amazon Mexico version, pretty efficient, but the prices are a little higher. The quality is like me. Curtains, it's
Huh.
difficult. It's difficult, yes. I brought my own, but it's difficult to find things like this that are nice. You can, and the
Right.
thing is people can make stuff for you. You can find the fabric and
Yeah.
have it made, but like I don't, I don't have the patience for that. I just want to decorate it. I'm like, I want everything here. There's a lot of beautiful homes and high end things, but then you pay a lot more. You pay a premium for them. There are a
Right.
lot of people who make stuff from hand. So, furniture, you can kind of find them in abundance, but it depends on your style. Like, if you
Mhm.
don't mind kind of like that more traditional Mexican furniture, which will be made out of solid wood, beautiful
Would.
stuff, and then you
Hmm.
hire someone to get you a cushion and you find the fabric and you find the stuffing. Who has time for all of that? I didn't want to do
Yes.
that. I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't have a car. I can't rent a U-Haul to drive to Mexico City. I can't just go and get what I need and load up and go back to my house. So I decided to go ahead and bring things that I needed. So for me, bringing kitchen appliances was not necessary. They have that in abundance. There's Costco's and every other store you can think of. But things that, maybe are more like luxury and comfort, like comforters, nice sheets, pretty curtains. It's just so much easier to get these things on Amazon.com in the US or TJ Maxx or Marshalls or whatever, depending on your or Zara. There's a Zara
Yeah.
home, an H&M home here, believe it or not. And, and Pottery Barn and all these stores, but the
Right.
prices are crazy. So carpets
Ah.
for the floor, it's hard to find stuff. You can get like the Turkish carpets and the Mexican handmade carpets, but it's not my style. So it's a struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't bring anything
Mhm.
except for three. I plan to bring, take our pictures out of the frames and just bring the canvases
Right.
next trip.
Next time.
And that's why we've got blank walls
Yeah,
because
we can take some empty bags
we,
back.
yeah, I mean, those 7 bags filled up
Yeah.
They
fast,
do. They do.
and we vacuum sucked things down.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
yes, does San Miguel de Allende have pueblos mágicos? Are there vegan restaurants in San Miguel? Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, there are tons of Pueblo Mágicos. San Miguel is kind of central Mexico. There are plenty of, pueblos surrounding this area or throughout Mexico in general. It's just you'd have to look it up to see the list of. There are tons of them. They're not far from here. You could go to like Bernal, which is one of they call it the 13 wonders of Mexico. It's just a huge monolith coming out of the earth. It's beautiful there. There are lots of places that's in the state of Querétaro, which is next to the state of Guanajuato, which is the state that I live in. But literally getting to like Bernal, it's an hour and a half away. There's Tezquiquiapan. There's so many places that you can go to that are probably within an hour and a half. And also other parts of Mexico. So you can do a quick search on that. Vegan, yes, there are tons of vegan restaurants. I see someone listed Rustica. They have a lot of vegan options, but there are solid vegan restaurants like Soul Tribe, and that's SOL Tribe. There's also Don Taco Tequila, all vegan, very good. And I'm sure there are plenty of others. And then lots of restaurants offer vegan options. So that's not something that you're going to be lacking. My son is mostly, well, he's vegetarian now. We were strict vegans when we moved here. They actually have a vegan store that's called Mr. Tofu, and it's a chain in Mexico. So they have one in San Miguel, so you can get a lot of vegan products there as well. Yeah, and even Costco sells a lot of vegan products.
Yeah,
HEB
that's true.
sells a lot of vegan products. For those who are familiar with HEB, it's a store that started in Texas. It's a huge grocery store. They have two of those in Querétaro. And there's also City Market and La Comer here locally that sells a lot of vegan products. Yep.
We see vegan products even in the chain grocery stores here as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And then there's a vegan gelato place. That's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, give me the real cow, but I'm going to try it. So, Kat
Yeah.
yesterday at the Rebloom Room convinced me to try it.
Right.
Um, so, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, here's another question about San Miguel. Is it walkable?
Oh yeah, it's mostly walkable if you're in Central. And what I always tell people is San Miguel is a very compact city. So, if there are some folks who don't want to be in the city or the center or central, as they call it, they kind of want a little bit of the country. So I feel that this is one of the cities where you can be in any direction in the country. 10 minutes, 15 minutes maximum, you'll be outside of central. But is it walkable? Absolutely. If you're in center, anywhere like San Antonio neighborhood, Guadiana, Guadalupe, all of these neighborhoods, and then central, it's all walkable. A lot of people that move here don't even have vehicles. I have a vehicle because I like to see stuff. But it's a very walkable city. It's hilly, so I just want to put that out there. And we're also 6,300 feet above sea level, so the air is very thin when
Ooh,
you get here. Yes.
but no bugs, or less bugs, I should say.
Oh, they're bugs. They're bugs, but less. Yeah, less than the tropical beach areas. The weather is amazing. You can look up the climate year round for San Miguel. Cool in the morning. It's a mountain town. We're in the
Yeah.
mountains. We're surrounded by the Sierra Madres mountains. It's beautiful, beautiful sunsets. When you're in Central and then you look beyond the city, you just see green and mountains. It's really
Oh,
pretty. Yeah.
sounds beautiful. If
Mhm.
not San Miguel, where else would you have considered living in Mexico?
That's a good question. Now that I've been in Mexico, in San Miguel for a few years, I can say, as far as beaches go, one of my favorite beach areas would be in Oaxaca. I just feel that it's just more pure, less touristy, but it all depends again on the person, what they're looking for. I absolutely think Huatulco area, the beaches are beautiful. I really enjoyed my trip last year to Mazatlan, which is also a beach town, very city, but
Oh,
still like a
interesting.
long stretch of like the Malincan where you can ride your
Right.
bike and ride, walk or whatever. I didn't love the city, like the interior, but along the water, I thought it was very nice. And also their center, it's an up and coming area. So if you're really like, I want to be in a beach town or city, that to me would be a recommendation. I'm not crazy about the Yucatan, and it's just because it felt too much like South Beach to me. And I spent a lot of years in South Beach, and it just felt very
Ah,
transient. Where,
Hmm.
like here, it's community because you put your roots, and there are other people who've put their roots down, and they're now, it's just the faces aren't always changing, and groups aren't
right.
always changing. So for me, that's part of the reason why I wasn't crazy about the Yucatan. It doesn't mean it's not a good option, but for me, it didn't feel like it just felt like it was changing too often. City vibes. I love Mexico City, but I don't want to raise my son in Mexico City. So just too much going on there. But I think it's a great place if you're, coming from maybe say New York and San Miguel might be too small for you or too slow. Querétaro is really nice. I've discovered Oaxaca City is beautiful, very traditional in my opinion. Also a great option for city creativity. If you want to be maybe around more like traditional Mexican ways or food, or just it just feels like
Food.
a little bit, like you're more in that mix of what Mexico authenticity, what Mexico is about. I think
Yeah.
Oaxaca is amazing. I was blown away also last year. Took a trip to Zacatecas, and yeah, I was just like, okay, there's
Huh.
so many cities here I haven't heard of. And,
Yeah.
and every time I show up in one, I am just pretty
Yes.
impressed. It was so European and no foreigners.
Huh.
They didn't even understand my Spanish. I was like, okay. So,
I understand what I'm saying. Why don't you?
yeah, I was like, I need a margarita on the rocks. They kept giving me frozen margaritas. It was crazy. I was like, oh my goodness, okay, this is frustrating. But my point simply is there's so much to see and
Hmm.
do. And I always say there's a place for everyone here. And I'm learning a lot more about this country. Mhm.
So, Lois, Evera, I believe, asked, what's the best place for an American to move? So, Lois, I think, it's hard to answer that question because all Americans are not the same. So you just heard, we know two lovely women who are living their best lives in Mexico City,
Yes.
Mhm.
right? But Michelle ain't one of them because that's not her vibe.
Right.
So, and then the other thing that I love, Michelle, is that, when we did a video on the best places for Blacks to move or
Mhm.
to retire to, and one of the criteria was, is there a thriving Black English speaking community there to give you a soft landing?
In San Miguel or
No,
just
just in general in the video. But
oh,
now, was there a thriving Black community in San Miguel when you arrived? And is there now?
okay. No, not really. But funny enough, I didn't think about that. I think I just wanted out of the US so badly. When I tell you, I literally just did not even think about it. And I had a friend who asked me, "Aren't you concerned about, your child having some exposure to his culture?" And it just like I literally remember being like, "Oh, uh, didn't think about it." And I said, "Well, I'm Black. I can expose him through." Just like, I got his back. All right, we got this. But anyway, saying all of that, I met Stephanie, and this is Stephanie Lanier. She's the owner of Smart Space, which is a co-working space here in San Miguel, and she's lived in Mexico for I think over or close to 20 years, and
Whoa.
she's amazing. And I met her, I think, on day 2 or 3. And I was in the grocery store grabbing stuff for to clean my place. And she kind of beeline behind me. And she was so like, just upbeat. She's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I was thinking for a split moment, like, did I meet her before? Because she was so like happy. And we started to speak about San Miguel. She was asking me, about what if I was visiting, and I said nope. I said I just got here 2 days ago, and I got my place, and blah 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 blah. Long story short, I asked her towards the end because it came up, and I said, "Well, how many of us are here?" And she said 12. And she was just like, and we've been here for a long time. And she called us the Dirty Dozen. And I started laughing. And I said, "Well, okay, now we're going to be, the Dirty 15 or 14 or whatever." And she just cracked up and, didn't think much about it. I got to meet a few of the people that had been here for a little while. There were some who had recently moved, literally like a few months before me. And, then 2019, like I said, people started to express more interest online. I had a young lady from, I think, Virginia. She said, "Michelle, why don't you start a group?" And I remember thinking, like, I don't know. It just always felt like people wanted to go to a beach town
Right.
and
Hmm.
not necessarily center of Mexico, right, in the mountains. And also, I think the vibe was always people were always saying, "Oh, there's just older white Americans there, retirees." And I said, "Well,
Right.
that's been the demographic of San Miguel for a lot of decades, but let's change it up, So I started this page, Black SMA hyphen San Miguel de Allende, and it's just been growing and people are finding us
Yay.
and we're able to bring the community together. And now I have no idea how many we are. I see Black faces on the street and I'm just so excited. I'm like, I don't know how they got here, but I'm going to hope that they saw something that was produced in some capacity, if not just by me but others. I mean, every day I see more Black faces. I see people in the grocery store. I saw 2 or 3 ladies today on the street. And I'm just like so happy. I'm like, okay, here we are, little pepper in the
There you
mix.
go. And that, so the last one that we did about best cities, we did not use that as a criteria. And because I thought of you and I was like, you know what? Just go somewhere and build it and,
Exactly.
introduce people and they will come. I mean,
Yeah,
how many Black folks are in Portugal because of Christina and Aman of Our Rich Journey?
exactly.
Every single Black person
Yeah.
that I've met
Hmm.
said they saw them first.
Exactly. And the same here. I have so many people that come, they're like coming through either one of my programs or through a online consultation, whatever it is, I saw your House Hunters International, I saw your YouTube video, I saw your interview with so-and-so. And so for me, it's sort of like one of those things where here we are, right? We're just looking at a screen, but you don't know who's watching and how
Right.
you're becoming a light for that person. And I think
Yeah.
that that's the key. And I even said this to my son recently. I told him, I said, you know what? Why don't you consider, at some point, no pressure, but starting a channel about your journey in Mexico, because you're going to be a light to a mom, a dad, a parent, a child that might need to see themselves in a different place. And I said, and that's
Yes.
encouraging. I said, you never know how you're going to impact someone's life. And I said,
Yes.
Yeah.
you've got it really well. And it's just one of those things where I've had literally a few parents that contacted me that just really are on the brink of depression, if not
Yeah.
depressed about their child and them being in the United States. And I remember thinking, like, giving that hope, like, you
Yes.
can make it. You have to put your stuff in order. And I know that, we'll segue into just where I am in this space in my life. It's just, you don't always see a path. You don't know. You don't know where this is going. There's no straight exact. There's no exact to the right, exact to the left. You just keep going, right? You just keep waking up every day, being grateful, and keep working at what you're working at and believing in it. And that's sort of my, motto. Like, I didn't move here anticipating that I was going to be doing exactly this. I wanted to do
Right.
something. I thought it was going to be kind of more like retreat only based, where women need to take care of themselves and self-care, which I do think we do, but didn't
Yes.
realize that my story was going to be an inspiration. And I'm just so grateful that I'm able to share this, because it's not easy out there. It's not easy. Sometimes we need, that
Yes.
upliftment. We all
Uplifting
need
Yeah.
and
it.
community. You
Absolutely.
know, what I heard you say is you walk by faith because you don't know where you're going. But guess what, folks? Like, look at her now, right? And look at us now. I mean, there's no way 3 years ago I would have seen us doing. I love
Mhm.
talking, always have.
Yes.
And I get to do it, and 122 people are watching. We love you guys, that you find
Mhm.
this content interesting. But I
Mhm.
tell you, had we not been able to just take that move, even though we were scared as bleep,
Yeah.
Mhm. Oh,
we
we're
wouldn't be
all
having this
scared.
conversation, right?
We
We
are
would
all
not
scared.
be having this conversation. But I tell
Yes.
you, I'm already feeling, I took a nap today. And I didn't have to like clean the whole house and do all of this
Mhm.
stuff to earn the nap. I just
Right.
decided I'm going to eat this comfort food and I'm going
Mhm.
to take a nap, just what you're
Yeah,
not supposed to do. That's what I'm going to
exactly.
do.
Exactly. Do what you want,
Right? So
you
Greta
know?
asks, are you close to a major airport?
Mhm. We're close to two major airports. First is Querétaro Airport, and that's QUERATERO, and the airport code is QRO. And that's about 45 minutes. That's the closest airport, 45 minutes away. And then the other close airport is Leon, and their code is BJX. And that's about an hour and a half. And there are shuttles that will pick you up in literally door to door service for $30 one way.
I love
It's
it.
like efficient. I love it. Yeah.
So we're going to have to swing through when we're back in the Americas,
Yes.
because it will be summertime, and so we will avoid Quintana Roo and all of that hot, heat, humid stuff, and go to the mountains
That's right. Avoid the
where
bugs.
Where Auntie Trey wants to know about the bugs and the stray dogs.
Great segue. Great segue. So there are bugs here, but not like in the tropical places. I mean, like I
Yeah.
said, we're way up in the mountains. The weather is pretty comfortable. You can check it out on Google to see what's the average temp, what does it look like. So basically, The weather here is very hot and very dry in April and May. Those are considered our summer months, not June, July, August, like what we're used to in the United States. April and May, it's like really hot in terms of the, peak of the day. So at 11 until about 3-ish, it can get up to, I say really hot. It's not like the beach towns. It's about 90s or so. Very dry. We don't have a lot of
But yeah,
humidity.
but the humidity, that's the thing that kills
We don't
you.
have a lot of humidity
Yeah, yeah.
here. And then in June, July, August, sometimes going into October, that's kind of our rainy season. But the rain mostly comes at night. So it's
Okay.
really, really
It
amazing
cools
weather.
everything down.
Yes, yes, yes. Like I
Denver used to
walk.
be like that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I walk in the mornings at 6 to 7, and it's pretty chilly. I'm like bundled in my little hat and my layers, and then I start doing my thing,
Taking
and it's
off.
like I'm starting to get hot. Yeah, and by sun up, 8, 9, 10, it starts to warm up quite a bit. We do get crazy windstorms sometimes, but that's like kind of a few hours, and then it passes. That doesn't happen often. But that's probably the extent of weather here. I've seen hailstorms, a couple
Oh,
hailstorms.
is it
Very rare.
rare?
It's
Okay.
rare, but it has
Yeah.
happened. When it rains, sometimes it's crazy. Like the lightning, it's actually beautiful because a lot of photographers would get out there and start sharing their pictures. I'm like, oh my God, spectacular, but stay inside. But the weather, I think, is great. I think it's definitely an attraction for a lot of people that have moved here in general. Yeah.
And I know folks are always asking about stray dogs in Mexico. So that was the second part of the question. And I'm just going to let you answer that right quick. And then there was a beach town that you said. I think it's the one that
Can she
starts with a.
spell that beach town? Oh, well, Tuco. Okay, I will. First, the dogs. I mean, there are a lot of dogs out. Okay, so I haven't quite, picked it apart yet because I think a lot of people here have their dogs and they don't put them on leashes and they're just street dogs that know where their home is and they just let
Right.
them be animals. I've never had any aggressive dogs and I actually feed them. So if that gives you any comfortability, I literally collect all of my leftover food. I never throw anything in the trash. I just make a big bag. And when it's full, I give it to, because there's always a dog somewhere, and I just feed them. And I've never had, they're usually running away. I'm talking big dogs running like scared because people treat them so poorly in general.
Mm,
They're really afraid of humans. So that to me is a non issue or non concern,
yeah.
really. I think if
Mhm.
anything, if you have any empathy towards animals at all, like your heart will be broken if you see how some of the animals are treated here.
Oh,
So yeah, I've even seen like, dead horses on the side of, not often, but it has happened where somebody probably didn't tie their horse up and they're like on the main road. I'm like, oh my God.
oh,
So that breaks my heart. And the other
yes.
question was about, what was it? Bugs?
Yeah, yeah, the bugs, the bugs and the dogs.
Okay. Oh, the beach town. Okay. The
Beach
bugs,
town. Yeah.
honestly, I really don't think that that's a huge factor. It all kind of depends too on where you are in the city.
Yeah,
Like if you're close to a lake or body of water, you're probably going to have more mosquitoes.
mosquitoes.
Not all day, but maybe at certain times of the day. I find that here it seems like mosquitoes come out at night,
Hmm.
but not like crazy. You can be in town in central and it's not that bad. Like where I live kind of outside of the city. It's really not that bad. And where I used to be doesn't, I don't remember really having any crazy issues. But you kind of have to just know where you are. You have to check, like if you're renting a place, you got to check for pests. I mean, you have to ask. You kind of just need to be very discerning about things. I haven't had any issues, but that doesn't mean they don't exist.
They
So
have flying roaches there.
the palmettos, I don't, they might, but I can't look. I was living in Florida,
She
so
lived in
I'm like,
Florida.
yeah.
There's palmettos in Florida.
I'm like, bring it
Big
Right.
on.
ones.
We
I'm
were
taking it
spoiled
out.
in Denver. We really were spoiled in Denver.
Yeah,
So if you want to put the beach town in the private
I'm
chat, then
looking
I
it
will
up.
put it. I'll put it in the chat.
I want to get the correct spelling for them.
Okay. Did
Portugal.
you have to navigate childcare, nanny, etc.? Any
Oh
pointers
yeah.
for a single mom looking to move to Mexico?
Oh yes, absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna put it in. You said the private chat, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's actually Huatulco, and that's considered Oaxaca, the state of Oaxaca. And I'll
Wow.
spell both. Yeah. Okay, there it is.
Okay. Perfect.
Um, yeah, you can look that up. It's not a big area, and it's kind of a lot of small beach towns from Oaxaca to, no, from Huatulco to Puerto Escondido. So both places have their own airports. Puerto Escondido is kind of considered like kind of a surfer beach place or area. Well, Tuco is just a small beach town, also kind of up and coming, and everything in between is just chill, laid back. There are a lot of there's like 22 bays that are pretty preserved, and yeah, there's not a lot of like construction and high rises and hotels and all that. They just don't allow it. And so you can literally catch a boat to a beach that's just you, no one else. And they'll just ride you around beach to beach. And it's
Wow.
beautiful, like amazing, amazing, amazing. You can rent a yacht, have someone drive you for the day for probably like 500 US. I mean, a beautiful yacht, and just get some friends and go hang out. It's really nice.
And live that life.
That's right. That's right.
No, but no one wants to see this body in a bikini. Okay. So
Well,
we are going to transition because we've been talking about for about an hour. That was a really, really quick hour,
yes.
right? We are about the money, and but money does not have to be something that you have to struggle for, especially when you are in alignment with what brings you joy. So, what was the original vision of Casa Elm, and then where are you at now?
Um, the original vision, I can't say I had. Um, I feel like the space came to me through me doing what I started to do, which was, advising, giving counsel to people who are interested in moving to San Miguel. And then, like last year in August or July, I remember I started thinking, like, okay, there are people who want more of an experience to visit. People were
Yeah,
like, hey, do you offer, a private situation or a tour where we can see it? And I remember going online and looking up other countries that were doing this. And I met this woman who was in Panama through through Black Sit Radio. And I was thinking like, oh, this is great. She was so dynamic and I really enjoyed her energy. And I remember thinking like, okay, maybe that's something that I could do. And I initially started looking for places I could borrow space and put people in. And then I realized I'm a little bit of um, a control person where I want to be able to, create the space and the scene inside of the space. And you can't do that if you're renting an Airbnb or
Right.
someone else's, thing.
right.
But that's where I wanted to start. Just let's start with that. Let's start somewhere. And so we started putting this, thing together for this year. And I didn't have my own space. I actually spoke to a gentleman that someone referred to me. He was very kind, had his own space for a lot of years in Centro. And I was talking to him, blah, 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 blah. And then, like I told you in our previous conversations, I just had this thing for a few days, like over a year ago, where it was like, okay, go and just look for something. And then you can just create it yourself, like instead of, giving someone else all this money for 1 week. Because San Miguel, if you want a space where you have like, multiple rooms and things, and it's furnished and it has blah, 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 it's going to cost you a pretty penny. So that's sort of where it started. And I yeah, I finally listened to that inner thing. It was 2 or 3 days on me to just go and look in this very specific neighborhood. And
Huh.
I finally went out. I got my son. I remember driving. So there's like kind of there's only one way in and one way out of this neighborhood. It's kind of considered one of San Miguel's oldest neighborhoods, more established with a lot of homes and whatever. And I remember just driving in, and instead of going down the main road, I went cross ways till I got all the way to Casa. And when I saw it,
Wow.
I just remember rolling up and just kind of already self-doubting a little bit, but because again, we start listening to a little bit too much to the fear. But
Right.
I remember thinking like, oh, I don't know, okay, whatever. And anyway, fast forward to that weekend, I made an appointment to go and look at it, and walking in, and it was very overwhelming because we were doing like a quick walkthrough, and then I was like, okay, asked, could I take a video just so I could kind of, regurgitate everything that night. Um, and yeah, so I sat down and I was just like, my heart's like beating really fast. And I'm just thinking like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What am I thinking? And I spoke to my coach, and she's just like, oh, you got to do this. This is the next level of your business. And I was just like, what? Okay, everybody can say that till they got to write that money out, right? But I was just like, so scared, really. And then I remember sitting down and spending like until 3 in the morning, everything that I needed to kind of review what I had already created on paper and in a document and files, and all of this stuff just then started making sense. And yeah, it just all kind of fell
Wow.
into place. And within a month and a half or so, yeah, about a month and a half, there I was in this shell of a beautiful home, but I was just like, oh, I got to put furniture in here. Lord have mercy. And I thought, oh, no big deal. I'll just go get all the stuff, and no biggie. But long story short, it was like 2 months of crazy because I had a deadline, because I had people actually coming, and it just made sense, right? It all of a sudden just started to make sense because here was everything already ready to go, and I just needed the space. And I just pushed and pushed and pushed until we got it as done as possible. And
And
it's
that's
been
the first
fun.
time I contacted you. You were probably crazy. You're like, I
Oh,
don't have
yeah.
time for
Still
you,
kind
Halisi. Halisi, who?
yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it is all good. It's all good. So, we hear things and we've heard things for years about buying property in Mexico, how difficult it is. Did you get a loan or did you pay cash, if you don't mind? And if you don't feel comfortable telling, you can,
Well, it's a little bit of both, and yeah. So there's no to the loan from a bank. There's other ways to do things here, so that's sort of the lane that we're in. But it's not as difficult, I think, as people think. I think it's just asking questions and maybe
yeah,
networking with the right people. And once you do that, then you start to ask them questions. I've been able to meet some really phenomenal locals. I mean, really phenomenal locals, that it's not just about the money and whatever. They've got your back. I've had certain things that have come up, and there's certain people I call and they're just like, oh, da, 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 this is what you do. And if you have any more problems, let me know and I'll write you a letter. And da, da, da. So there's like a lot of that kind of thing that would that can come up in these situations. So to answer the question, and I'm going to segue into one really short thing, and it's kind of a plug for my friend Suki. I haven't met her in person, but she and I just did a video on renovating and buying in Mexico. And
okay,
yeah, if you go to my channel, which is expatlifemexico.com, I mean, on YouTube, you'll find this video that she did, and it's about her experience in buying. And there are apparently banks in Mexico that will now finance you to buy a house. There's a lot of information on there. So I think it's a good idea for you to go there and look at that video and really, see what the options are. There's also Moxie, which has recently come up on Facebook. And Moxie basically has, what is it? I guess you can get a mortgage in the United States and they will finance a house in Mexico. So that's also an
Oh,
option. And then there's also the, owner finance situations. So
right.
yeah.
And that I've done an owner finance situation. It makes it really easy once you've developed that relationship,
Mhm.
and you don't have to go
Right.
through as much rigmarole.
Yeah.
So, okay,
We
VJ,
have
I
some
hope you're still here.
troll alerts. Did you see that?
No, and I did open it up so
Okay.
that, oh, fudge. What we
You
got
can,
going here is
yeah.
probably all the way at the bottom. I will let you answer. Oh, there it is.
Okay, let's see.
VJ's
Let's make sure.
question, because she asked this question at the
Hi,
beginning.
BJ. For now, I'm staying in SMA only because this is where I know, this is where I'm familiar with, and I have my local people that I use that help with what we're doing. So I don't take people on a lot of the information they need to know. I literally hire the immigration specialist, the driver who's a licensed tour guide who takes you through the neighborhoods, a licensed realtor who's worked here for years and years and years selling houses after house or renting places. We connect and we set up these presentations with these people. So this is kind of my place, because this is where I live, and I have that connection. However, if someone were interested in, the how-to, for example, starting in January, we are adding on at the end of our tours an additional 3 or 4 days. If you're interested in Querétaro, which is the bigger city, because some people want to be in a bigger city, or they want to know, they want to explore that. We're adding that as an additional upsell for anyone who might be interested in Querétaro. They can add that extra couple of days, and we'll do the same sort of things in Querétaro, where you can get the neighborhood tour, go with a realtor. There's going to be a welcome dinner, and see houses and just kind of explore, do a city tour, things like that. So that allows you to make a good decision. Does is San Miguel your thing, or maybe Querétaro, or maybe you want to keep looking? So that, I hope, answers somewhat of your question. I would consider other places, but I would really want this to have like solid roots before I start, becoming a jack of all cities in Mexico. Yeah, I think there
So
are a lot of other places.
we've got folks to visit in Querétaro.
Yes.
We got to visit
Yes.
Michelle and San Miguel. I mean, we're going to have a Mexico tour. Is it hard to open a business in Mexico?
It depends.
Yeah, and is there licensing and all of that you had to go through, and how did you navigate the bureaucracy?
It's
I'm
not
just going to
really
add to her question.
Yeah, that's okay. I think it depends on the type of business. And I know I've done videos, again, visit my channel, make sure you subscribe. I'm like, don't just watch all the stuff and not subscribe if you like what's coming on. But there's lots of information, especially with Anna Siller, who is like an attorney, licensed translator, and she does like immigrations and stuff like that. But there's a lot of info. It depends on the type of business. If you're a restaurant or a place where you're getting paid pesos, you have a brick and mortar, or, it all depends on what it is. If you are, I don't know, selling goods and merchandise in a place, then, the rules are a little different. It all depends. So I don't really want to give advice on that. I think you just have to, whatever your idea is, then sit down and speak to an attorney about what it is that you need to do. I know nowadays they're requiring RFCs, which is kind of like a tax ID for people, even individuals. If you want, I think with time, because they just started reinforcing it, with time, you're going to need to have this to buy a car, sell a car, buy a house, sell a house, things like that.
Oh, I heard about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it all kind of depends. If you're, kind of a travel person, bringing people in groups, I think it's not such a requirement, but maybe that's going to change. I don't know. So Yeah.
So do you have permanent or temporary residency, and do you have to get special permission as a non-citizen?
Yes, you do, because you need to have a work permit. Yeah,
Okay.
and then you can get that as a temporary, but all again depends on what you're doing. What kind of
Okay.
business are you? Yeah, like are you going to be a nightclub? Then it might be a little bit more involved. Just
I
all
Mhm.
bet.
depends. Yeah.
I bet. Liquor license and all that stuff.
Yes.
And so Milagros, I think we answered your question. You said, where is she from? So we've talked about that.
Toronto.
Yeah, I
Toronto.
just I didn't want to think you to think that I didn't see it or ignored you.
Okay.
What is the co-working space name again?
Smart Space. And the owner is Stephanie Hogue, Hough. And you can find her on Facebook if you're on Facebook. I'm going to look it
So
up.
if they just type in Smart Space San Miguel, they'll find it. Yeah,
Yes. Smart Space Hub, HUB.
hub. Okay.
Mhm. Yes.
What has been the biggest positive change you have personally experienced since moving to Mexico, whether expected or not?
The biggest positive, I mean, doing this, it's been really a blessing to be a part of so many, mostly women, taking this leap of faith to move somewhere new. It's kind of interesting because I've had people come through and they're like praying and crying with me and crying together, and I just kind of find that super moving because I mean, chill, sweet, laid back, but I'm kind of tough. Like I'm like, and then when that happens in these moments, and I'm just so grateful, and I realize that, they're also the wind for me beneath the wings.
Yeah.
It's not just me. People are, you're such a godsend. And I think to myself, no, you are. Like, if I didn't have you, what would this be? You know what I'm saying? And I always say
Yes.
at any occasion that I can, thank you so much for trusting in this journey with me and whatever it is you're doing. Because there are so many people who literally they're like, oh, I just saw your video. I booked a ticket and I came. And I'm just like blown away by that because
Right.
I'm a little bit more like plan, and, do. Okay. But there's so many amazing people that have done this, or they came, they stayed for a week or whatever. And then they went back home, they packed up and they got their residency and they came back. So when I see that there's this need and I'm able to be a part of filling that need, is just such a blessing. So for me, positive energy in the house is like a constant. And I'm so grateful. Like when people leave, like the last ladies that were there in September, I was just literally like, oh my God, just like feel all of this magic around us. And, just all of the people we get to interact with and talk to. And yeah, I'm just grateful. And, having like my son being able to see and be a part of just being around all these beautiful people, I think it's just really amazing. And I'm super, super grateful, like amazing, grateful,
Yes.
everything. Yeah.
I just want to know, like, where were all of these folks in the States? I guess we were just
Everywhere.
all stressed the heck out and couldn't be our authentic selves, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have met, we have met some amazing
Amazing
people,
people.
Yes.
right?
Yes. It's a transformation. I feel like people get here and they're suddenly just shedding all this stuff, and they're just like, oh, I can live a better life. I can enjoy myself. I can go out. I can breathe because I don't have to pay bills up to here. There's so many
Yes.
factors. And even this morning, sitting down, having quick, brunch, breakfast, and we're just cracking up, and I remember thinking like, here's Taylor, spent all these years in South Africa. She's from California. She's super interesting. She's going to move to Paris. And then, here's beautiful Anne Marie, who's from Trinidad, lived in DC, and she's now traveling the world. And it's like, just like you said, where were these people when I lived in South Florida? It
Yes.
felt so superficial all the time. And now I'm just really excited that I get to meet so many amazing, beautiful people and spend time, not just in passing, like they're my community. They check on me. How you doing? Or you could get some rest, or here's what I'm doing. I'm packing up my stuff. I'm stressed out. I just want you to help me get my feet back on the ground. I'm like, you got this, and it's just
Yes.
so, so beautiful. Yeah, I'm grateful.
My younger sister grew up partially in Johannesburg and Durban. And when she came back, I remember her saying, and even up until a couple of years ago, I'd really like to move back. I'm just so tired of the airs that folks put on here.
Mm-hmm.
And before I started traveling extensively, I didn't understand what she was saying. I didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Amani, I get it now. I get it now. So Danita asks, fur babies are, if you need a sitter, let's see, is there a lot of places that are pet friendly? And do they have like dog watchers or cat watchers or something like that? And of course, there's always trusted house sitters.
Right. Yes to all of it. Yeah, you can easily get someone to help you with your fur babies. If you're comfortable putting them in a place, they have, kennels and things. I usually have someone come to my house and watch my fur baby because it's affordable. And usually I don't want to remove him because he's much older anyway from the house. Or yeah, you can have a friend. We sometimes dog sit, for people we know, but there's trusted house sitter. Yeah.
Professor, you're so funny.
Uh-huh.
How cold does it get there in the winter? Did you say?
Mm, it doesn't really, I can't really say we have winter. It's more like fall. Yeah.
Okay, so
So
a
it could
fall,
70s,
be,
70s.
so 60s,
yeah, in the
low
day, it's
70s.
like usually 70s, low 70s. At night, I've seen 35 to 40. But then by, like I said, the sun comes up 10, 11, and it's going back up to 60s and 70s. Mhm.
Yeah, that's nice. That is
Mhm.
nice. We are come. It's been raining all week, and it'll be raining this week. But it's not that cold,
No.
No, here,
and
same.
so it'll be interesting to see what it's like in December, January, February.
Oh, well, keep me posted because it gets a little chilly here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This is going to be especially because there's no central. This is my first time with no central heat. I've never had central air, so that's just
Yeah,
what it is.
same. I have a heater, you plug it in, or you have a house that has a fireplace. Yeah, you make it through.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, Cost of living between San Miguel and
Otuko.
Matulco.
San Miguel's higher. I can't really give you cost of living in Otuko because when I was there and the years I spent there, I had a house and we built it. That was a while ago. But it's definitely less expensive there, but it's a much smaller, area. That's going to be a place where you're going to have way more like local encounters. It's not a negative thing. It's a beautiful area as well.
No,
But
you're Spanish.
yeah, exactly. Got to speak Spanish. Yep.
Yvette asks, was wondering if running an Airbnb in Mexico means you are doing business in Mexico. Like,
I
does that
would think so.
require
Yeah.
residency, business license, etc.?
Again, it all depends. But Airbnb, yes, you have to have a permit and you can get that permit if you have residency. Um, and that's with the city. And I think it's 10,000 pesos for an annual permit. And that's about 500 US dollars.
That's not too bad.
No.
Is Mexico hard to navigate if you're not fluent? What part of Mexico, LP? But we'll talk about San Miguel and the surrounds because
Yeah. That's
Cancun
32
is different
states.
than Mexico City, is different
Right.
than Puerto Vallarta, is different than
Hmm.
Guadalajara, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. So,
Yeah. Um, I say it depends on what kind of navigation. If you're just visiting and you want to eat and find the bathroom, you're good. You don't really need to learn Spanish. But if you want to, pay local prices and understand where you're living, then you should learn the language. San Miguel is very easy to navigate. It's a very soft landing. I say that all the time. Cancun is going to be touristy. All of the people at most of the resorts speak English. If that's what you're trying to just go on vacation, that's a little
Yeah.
bit different. So it all kind of depends on, it just all depends on where you are. Yeah, I speak Spanish. It's decent. And like I said, if I go to some places, like when I went to Zacatecas, I'm telling you, I was just like, un margarita en las rocas con sal, por favor. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, a margarita on the rocks with salt. And it was a struggle. It was a struggle. And luckily I was with my friend who was Mexican, and she was just like, well, they apparently don't make frozen, non-frozen margaritas. They only make them frozen. And it was very interesting because the guy was explaining to her in this particular area, which is only 4 hours away from San Miguel, how, this is what they did. So in saying all of that, it was just, it's one of those things where I've been to so many different parts of Mexico, and you just try. And I think for the most
Yeah.
part, people don't really give you a bad attitude. They may just look at you like a deer in headlights, and then you pull out your Google Translator and do your
Yeah.
best. Yeah.
Even in Puerto Vallarta, I spoke Spanish. Like there weren't at the where we were, which was actually the north part.
Mhm.
I can't even remember the area,
Nuevo
Nuevo
or
Vallarta, I know,
Nueva
Nayar.
something like.
York. Mhm.
And the little taco shop, the convenience store, they did not speak English.
Yeah.
They did not speak English, and thankfully, after 2 years of Spanish, I knew enough to navigate that in context.
Right. Right.
In context.
Yeah.
So Zolani reminded us we forgot to answer her question about childcare and nannies and
Oh,
stuff.
yes, yes, yes. Okay, so depending on how old your child is, there are daycares, and then there are a lot of like schools, like Montessori schools, where you can start them off really young in a school setting. I think as young as 3, maybe in
Oh
like a
wow.
Montessori setting. Micah was already older when we got here. He was 6. And there's plenty of like daycare facilities. And I can tell you, it's probably, yes, if that's your thing, it's not a bad choice, because I feel like that's the great time for you to start letting your child be exposed to the language, because they're going to be bilingual in less than a year. My son's fully fluent in Spanish, and it took him about a year. And he was 6 at the time. So, in saying all of that, yes, there's daycare. You can get nannies. It's very affordable, affordable compared to the United States. Again,
Right.
we all have to figure out what our budget is and, plan accordingly. But um, the average kind of cost for those services, if you're not hiring them full time, is basically about 100 pesos an hour, maybe 120 pesos an hour, which is like 5 to 6 or $5 to $7. And you want to make sure that you are hiring someone that's kind of word of mouth through someone that you
Yeah.
know. And San Miguel is kind of notorious for having a lot of word of mouth community contacts that you can kind of lean on and say, because it's a small town, a small enough town where a lot of people know, the family of the person who works for so and so, and they have sisters and they're looking for work. And that's sort of how it works, as opposed to going on Facebook and just generally asking for someone to come and watch your child. You really don't want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Me neither.
Okay, so fun question. Are you still in the same home from the episode of House Hunters International?
No, I'm not. I'm in a different home, but I'll say this, that one of my clients just took that home last week.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That is funny.
Oh, grits.
So grit. There is an online store called My American Store, and they have grits, and I have ordered them.
A couple
Uh,
packages.
no, no.
Well,
Boxes.
boxes,
Boxes,
packages.
baby, not little packets.
I told her to go and order a case, but
Auntie Trey, you know you're not right.
I,
Trying to bring up the grits.
do you
I
eat grits,
love it.
Michelle?
I do. I didn't really eat grits in the U.S. I used to eat grits when I was a kid. To be honest, that was my comfort food. This may sound gross, but I ate grits, scrambled eggs, and I would put ketchup all over it, right? And then when I moved, he's like, no, that was my comfort food. I don't know why.
ah,
And when I moved here or living in the US, it wasn't a thing. Like, who cares about grits? You can get it anywhere. Then I moved here, suddenly grits became a topic. And I was like, I can't find them. And it's tricky because in the store, you walk down that aisle, there's the Quaker Oats guy on the box, but it's actually oatmeal. And I'm like, ooh. So they don't have grits here. Someone told me they have them in Guadalajara. That's 4 hours away. But I can tell you that lots of people bring me containers and containers of grits. So I have tons of
I love
grits.
it.
Yeah.
There was someone in the Black PV Facebook group that said she got some white popcorn, put it in her food processor so that it grounded it up, and then
Mhm.
she cooked it like grits. And she was like,
Okay. I'm not doing that, but
yeah,
okay.
that's a
it's
lot of work, but
Wait,
in a
was it
pinch.
popcorn? Like she popped it and
No,
then,
she didn't pop it.
oh,
She just left the kernels and then cooked
oh,
that. So she created a grain
interesting.
from the corn. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, it is corn.
That's true. That's true. Okay. That's true.
So,
Dating scene.
usually Stephanie, Adalia, and Rashida get these questions. We rarely get these questions, but
That's
hey,
okay. Laura, I don't know because I'm not dating. However, I will tell you that it seems like it's a struggle here in San Miguel because I think because it's a small town, we've gotten like a lot of people that retired a long time ago, a lot of people who came with their significant other, whatever that looks like. And I've heard others say that they kind of go over to Querétaro, which is 45 minutes away. That's kind of all I can tell you about it. But it sounds like it can be a struggle. I know that some of the other cities, it seems like it's more lucrative. That's the right word to use. It's easier to find someone in those other cities. But I do think that one of the top things I can think of people saying is just being open to maybe dating outside of our race. Yeah.
we're in the same generation. I have never, ever, ever been on those dating apps because they weren't out before I met Rick. They didn't
Right.
exist. Or if they did, I didn't know about them. I know like those online, like, where you fill out all that stuff, but the swipe, 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 swipe did not exist.
Right.
Have you ever been on those dating apps?
I was on a dating app when I lived in Florida, off and on,
Okay.
way back. Can't remember the year, but I tried like Match when they first came out.
Yeah, that I remember.
What else was I on? Black People Meet, which was interesting. There were actually
Okay.
some quality people on there. No one that I was
Okay.
really connecting with, but really, I felt like I met some really nice people, nice guys.
Cool.
Um, and I want to say that was it from my personal experience. But in recent years, no, I have not been on anything. And yeah, things pop up, and I'm just like, why am I getting this? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I'm just glad I'm not single today because I don't know. I don't know, y'all. The swipe, swipe, and at this age, they're not trying to swipe on this face, this bot. They're just not.
yeah,
So for the folks, we are going to wrap it up at 1 hour and 40. I don't see any more questions in the chat. But we want to close this out. Look, folks, this moving abroad thing, I am on a mission. We are on a mission,
yeah.
right? Because the United States does not deserve us. They just don't.
that right.
They're not acting right. They're
Mm.
not getting their stuff together. They're not improving. Every once in a while, somebody will tell me some news. And I can tell that they still do not appreciate the fact that we built that stuff
Mhm.
and we are 100% American. Now, they ain't treating us that. I've never felt it. I've never felt that I've been treated that way. Um, and so the money thing, getting your money together so that you can make this move. Was it something that you had to plan for, or did you already have your stuff together and it's just like, okay, I'm out?
Yes, planned, but more so, I think just, you know, thinking about cost of living, because as I said, in the US, everything costs so much more.
Mhm.
So it took a while for me to really see it that way. Because years and years ago, when I had the opportunity to live in Mexico, I was just, green and young in my head. And I was like, oh, what am I supposed to do there? Da, 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 da. But that was because I didn't know how big and vast the country was. There were
Right.
places that I could have lived in Mexico and I just didn't know about them. And there wasn't the same kind of, accessibility and resources that we have. This is
Today.
literally early 2000s when I had the
Right.
chance to live in Mexico. And I was very kind of pushing against it. But, fast forwarding to now, I just realized like, okay, it's all doable, but you really need to think about what, where am I in my life? Maybe what do I want in 10 years from now? What do I want that to look like? Or 5 years from now?
Mhm.
Do I have, the finances? I feel like there's so many ways that you can really earn a good living,
Yes.
you
Yes.
may have to relearn something, right? You may have to relearn, I don't know, I'm learning how to trade. It's fascinating. It's interesting. I mean, I keep hearing about things. I've been hearing about it for years and years.
Mhm.
It's risky, but it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, if you want to have, other means of income, what can you do? Can you find a space that you can offer up to someone and share it and live it? there's
Yeah.
there's so many options, and I think
There
you
are
have
so
to
many
get
ways.
online. You have to put your roots and your feet down in the ground and say, okay, I'm going to figure something out for myself. What are my talents? Can I bring enough of this to someone or a group of people who are going to be interested in it and willing to pay for that? Do I have a savings? So for me, it was, I had, rental property in Florida, two houses on one lot. And, that's sort of where I started with. And I was like, can I get another? Can I build up this way? Do I have a house? Those are things I talk to people about. I'm like, do you have a space? Can you rent your space in the US? And whatever, maybe you have a social
Right.
security check or a pension check. I don't know. Do you have a savings that you can kind of float yourself while you're learning something? You just you have to sit down and think about it. No one can tell you what your bank account's supposed to look like. So for me, I
That's
had
right.
savings, I had, my 401, I had rental income. So yeah, that's sort of,
And you make it work.
yeah, and I
You make it
preserved it.
work.
And I was like, okay, wherever I put this needs to make me money. Am I buying a big old house in Mexico? Nope. I was like, wherever this chunk goes is going to be for something that's going to make money, period. That's the only
Uh,
thing I'm going to spend it on.
that's
Yes.
right. That's right. And folks, so if you want to join us out here in these international streets, we do have a
Yes.
challenge coming up. It's a 1 week challenge. It starts right after Black Friday
Ooh, love
on
it.
purpose. Don't spend
I'm
that
writing that
money.
down.
Don't
do
spend that
do
money.
something with that money. And
Right.
even if you're not trying to get to these European streets, these international streets, and you want to stay in the United States,
Hmm.
still, let's stop living from paycheck to paycheck, or tomorrow's emergency might break us.
Yeah,
Right.
There's no need to do that.
that's
There's
right.
there's a big world out there, and there's a lot, like Michelle said, there's a lot of ways to make money. A
Yes.
lot.
Say pedicure, anyone from Exodus Summit.
Oh,
But we are
yes.
going to, you know what I'm talking about. We
Oh,
are
yes,
going
I
to talk
do.
about how to get your money straight, how to make more money easily without a lot of hustle and grind, because we are not talking about that. That has taken up enough of our time and our energy, and we cannot be our best selves for our loved ones. You know, you guys know that, you know, we are helping my parents in their latter years, and I can't show up correct for them if I'm stressed out working 70 hours a week with my hair falling out and losing all this weight,
Right.
right?
Amen. Amen.
Money straight is the key.
Mhm.
I call each dollar a freedom unit. It gives
Mhm.
you freedom.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So we are going to wrap this up. I don't see any more questions. Michelle, thank you
Thank you, Michelle.
so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. I'm
Thank
going
you
to
so
plug my
much.
my thing for a second.
Yes,
So if
do that.
anyone's interested in San Miguel or more about San Miguel, I have relocation strategy sessions on expatlifemexico.com. I also do relocation tours to San Miguel. We have our whole calendar. We're sold out for this year, but we have a whole calendar on Casa, CASAELM.com. And you can, do the RSVP there. I have an assistant who's amazing, Brianna. She helps me with so much and she holds it down. So if you have any questions about anything, then also you can catch us on my channel, which is Expat Life Mexico on YouTube. Tons of info about Mexico and even answers to questions maybe that we didn't get to. So I
Yeah.
thank you so much, both of you, for reaching
Yes,
out and being
definitely.
persistent. Being
Of
persistent.
course. Of course.
Thank you so
All
much.
of that
Love you.
information is in the description. All right, folks. The way to get in touch with Michelle, all of the links are in the description. So, check her out, subscribe to her channel, and learn about what folks are doing in Mexico.
Yes.
Subscribe to our channel.
Yes. Oh,
Yes,
like and subscribe to our
absolutely.
Like
channel.
and
I forgot about
subscribe.
that. And
Absolutely.
share this with someone you know, share
Yeah.
this with someone you love. Next
Yes.
week. Next week, we are going to be talking about healthcare in Portugal. Y'all asked for it.
Mm.
Y'all are asking all these questions. So we found three folks, young and older. When I say older, I mean my age, who have had, or around my age, who have had experiences with the healthcare system here. And then if you are in our Facebook group, which is Fire Over 50, we are bringing in the person from Serenity. I know I have our Facebook thing up here.
An expert in
Yeah,
healthcare.
we are going to bring an expert into the group to answer your questions. He's a doctor. He has been a healthcare concierge here in Portugal for, I think, at least a decade. So if you're not part of the Facebook group, is for folks from the diaspora, a safe space with no gaslighting. So,
Yeah.
but you don't have to be 50. You don't have to be 50.
No.
You just have to be on a mission to get your money straight. And it doesn't have to be about Portugal either. But if you are interested, Fire Over 50, all of that information is in the description. And I don't see any more questions, so we're going to let you go.
Thank you
All right,
all.
folks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Michelle, hang
audience.
on
Thank
for
you,
one
Michelle.
Thank
second.
you. Sure, will
Uh,
do.
and we love you guys, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.